I still don't quite know why I wanted to do this. I just thought it would be a nice thing to do, um, given everything that's going on in the world at the moment. Today is October the 17th, and it's quite a special day for me. It's been a year since a big moment in my life. But it's been a really strange year. There's been all kinds of stuff happening. We've had the wildfires in Australia, we've had drone strikes in Iraq and Afghanistan, we've had a US president who's almost been impeached, or was impeached, or something. I don't know. US politics is weird. Don't ask me. We've had the UK withdraw from the EU. We've had protests in Hong Kong. We've had protests all over the world. Most of that was just in January. It's now October. That's not even mentioning the elephant in the room that is the current global health pandemic that is sweeping across, well, clues in the name. It's global. You figure it out. Wear a mask. Wear a fucking mask. But I wanted to talk about something that seemed, to me at least, more unlikely than all of those things combined happening in my lifetime. And that is me celebrating 1 year on hormone replacement therapy.
Congratulations! Congratulations! Congratulations!
So, to most people, that probably won't sound like such a big thing, but to me and for most people who are transgender, it's a really big thing. Getting on hormone replacement therapy means the world to most of us, not to all of us. You can still be transgender and not go on hormone replacement therapy for a variety of reasons, but for most people, it's a big thing. And I honestly never thought that I could get here to where I am today. I've still got a really long way to go before I'm happy with where I am. I don't know if I'll ever stop transitioning. I don't know if I'll ever reach a point where I go, yeah, no, I'm happy with myself now. That's it, I can leave it alone. But I never imagined that I'd be able to come out to the world and try and live my life the way that I felt I always should be. I spent 12 really long years questioning what was wrong with me, trying to figure out why I felt these feelings. I could never come up with a good reason for it, and because I couldn't come up with a good reason for it, I just repressed it. I assumed that it was just a thing that would pass. So I buried it, and it wasn't until late 2018 when I had the sudden, painful, frankly quite terrifying realization that I'm transgender. I just am. I've researched it over the years. Certainly I questioned it a few times while I was a teenager. I came across what gender dysphoria was, what it meant. I looked it up online, and I tried to match everything to my past and into my current feelings, trying to figure out some days why I felt so awful despite seemingly having no reason to do so. Trying to figure out this feeling when I looked at other girls, a horrible mix of jealousy, curiosity, and anger because I couldn't be like them. It just didn't fit into place for me at that point in time, but looking back on it now, I feel really horrible for it. I was trying to figure out why I'd been wearing typically female clothes so regularly, why I was so fascinated with makeup, or why I would paint my nails in secret. And I just had that sort of profoundly life-changing realization that what I originally thought was just some sort of perverted fetish was much, much more than that. The day had come where I could no longer hide from myself, and I just sort of cracked. It just happened, and I sat there going through everything in my head, and all the pieces just sort of fell, or rather tumbled, careened, exploded into place. Looking back at some of my antics as a teen, I could point out to you dozens upon dozens of moments that I would say is compelling evidence that I was transgender. Some of you who will watch this video would have been part of those antics, and you probably wouldn't have realised it at the time, much in the same way that I didn't. We just sort of got on with our lives and no one thought it meant anything. And that's because, to most people, they were just an inconsequential detail in the big picture. Whereas for me, these were glimpses into my truth, to find who I was supposed to be, and those were the critical moments. As I say, even I missed them when I got to experience them firsthand. And that's when things sort of took a turn for the worse for me. I knew how I felt, which was great. I knew what I was. I knew I was transgender. It was fine. But then I knew that there was only one solution to that issue. And that was to actually transition. And if I thought that the years of questioning were tough, oh boy, I was in for a big shock when I found out how hard it was actually going to be to bring up the subject of transition with anyone, or even figure out where to start at all. I got really, really, really depressed about it. To the point of very regular suicidal thoughts, and if you've ever been there, you'll know that it's not a place that you would ever wish anyone would go. Mercifully for me, I never acted on them for multiple different reasons, which maybe I'll go into some other time. It's quite a dark subject, but it's something that needs to be talked about, and maybe I can help by talking about it. I don't know, I'm talking to a bloody webcam in a shed at the moment with a giant ring light burning my retinas out. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm just doing things. But slowly, something amazing started to happen for me. I gradually found the confidence to tell people, one by one, and my support network started to form. And that's what I really want to talk about in this video, because it's just going to be a bit intense and quite heartfelt, and you know what? It's going to be cringy. Just deal with it. There's cringe coming. So anyway, without that support network that started to form, I can say to you confidently that I wouldn't still be here. What started off slowly for me grew exponentially within months. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of take you through my timeline, explain the big moments to you, the big people who were involved with everything that happened, just so as you can see the world sort of from someone who's transgender's perspective on things, and realise that some of your actions have a massive impact on other people's lives, even if you don't realise it. We're going to start with between 2013 and 2018. So that sort of 5-year period. Seems so bloody long ago now. 2013, 7 years ago, when the biggest problems in the world were, I think Donald Trump had just been elected or something like that. And that was a bad thing then. Oh, we had no idea how bad it was going to get though, did we? So very bad. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So it's the end of 2013. I've been in a relationship with someone for 3 months, and it's going well. I'm really happy, and as far as I know, so are they. But I feel the need to tell them that I've been, what I said at that time, was cross-dressing, and I've been doing it for a few years. And I practically broke down as I did so, because I was so afraid that they would just leave me on the spot there and then. But they didn't. They accept it, perhaps not fully understanding it, but honestly, at that point, neither did I. And for the next 7 years, they became the sole guardian of my secret. And I know that they had to tell a couple of their friends, so that they could have someone to talk to about it as well. And from that, from them telling them, I was able to take my first steps out in gender-affirming clothes. I went to my friend's house. And you may be wondering, what was the fateful outfit that I had chosen for my first excursion into the real world? It was a goddamn fancy dress French maid outfit. It's October the 31st, 2015, I think. And I must have looked ridiculous. But my friends did my makeup, I wore false nails, and I just had this big old stupid grin on my face the whole time. But none of us actually knew what it meant. not even myself. I just felt comfortable and happy. More years came and went by, and I'd been what I called dressing up at the time more and more often at home, in private, and still the only person who knew was my partner at the time. 99% of you who are watching this will probably already know who that is. And while our relationship has come to a close now, I can't thank them enough for everything that they did over all of those years. All of those first times, all of the depressed nights and days, the tears, the self-doubt. They took it all in stride with me. It wasn't perfect, and these things rarely are, but it was especially imperfect with both of us having not insignificant mental health issues to contend with. But thank you. And I really mean that. We're going to skip ahead somewhat now. We're now January 2019. So as I already mentioned, I came out to myself at the end of 2018, and I actually set myself a New Year's resolution to make sure that in 2019 I took steps to better come to terms with my gender. January was a depressing time. I explained exactly how I felt to Robin. We had touched on it before, that I'd been thinking about gender dysphoria. We didn't really go into it too much, and I didn't tell anyone else that month. It was a bit of a slow start. Most of you who will know me know that I'm pretty sexually open. I love my kink. It's part of who I am. So a guy I'd been chatting to online for a while asked if I would come over to his for Netflix and chill. But I had a problem. He only knew me as Jess, or rather Daisy, as that's what I went by at the time. And I didn't want to show up at his house in boy mode and then have to change. I had to get changed at home and then drive there. But there's no way that I was gonna go without telling someone where I was, which, for the record, is absolutely the right thing to do when you're going to meet someone online in person for the first time, or any subsequent time until you're really comfortable with them. Robin was away at the time, so that just left one person. My dear old mum. And there's me, dressed up to the max, full makeup and all, standing at the closed door to my living room. And it took me a full 10 minutes to actually go in. But I did. I was nervous, I was scared, and I was really, really sheepish as I sort of edged my way in. She kind of did a double take when she looked at me, and just said, "Wow." I don't really know what that meant. I think it was just a bit of a shock for her, to be honest. But I just kind of babbled my way through explaining that this is me, this is how I feel comfortable. I didn't use the word transgender at this point. I just said that this is how I feel comfortable looking and dressing like this. I told her where I was going, what I was doing, and that I would actually feel more comfortable if I could dress like this around the house more often. We didn't speak too much in detail at the time because I had Netflix to go and chill with, so we briefly hugged and I left. When I got back later that evening, we discussed it some more, and it was around this time that my sister found out. My darling sister. She actually scolded me for not telling her sooner, because we'd missed out on years of girly talk and doing each other's makeup and all that stuff. She can be a right pain in the arse, as most siblings can, but more than once now, when I'm in a supremely dark place, she'll come and pull me out of it. Her advice in fashion and makeup were invaluable in my early days. I learned how to do my brows properly from her, and dear God almighty, if you go look back at some of my Instagram posts from early 2019, I needed that help so bad. So very, very, very badly. But then just like that, as if it was nothing too much to ask for them, my household family suddenly had my back. So, I play in a Dungeons & Dragons group. I play in several Dungeons & Dragons group. It's amazing. If you don't play D&D, you're doing something wrong with your life. It's great fun. Just go and play. So, this group that I'm in, it's some of my close friends, Robin and our DM. And I asked if I could go to D&D dressing how I wanted to for the first time. So there I am, totally on femme, and among my friends. And I was shocked again. No one cared. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I was worried that I would offend people or get ostracized for it. But no one treated me any different. I was still their friend. I just looked nicer. And I was a lot happier too. After such a good reaction at the D&D group, I decided that it was time to actually venture out into public, dressed how I wanted to. It was small steps at first. I only went round the corner from my house to my local pub in the evening to see some friends who I hadn't seen in a while. Again, no one cared. I got some strange looks from people at the bar, sure, but no one was confrontational, no one was mean. And that was the first time that someone outside of my family had tried using my preferred pronouns, and at the time preferred name. And that someone was Luke. Luke Todd. You are a wonderful, wonderful person, and you deserve the world. And thank you for being the first person to really make an effort with that step for me. Then it was the biggest step that I'd taken so far. I'd been nervous coming out to the people I'd already come out to, but this next bit was different. This was the step that I took to come out to the 4 people I'd spent almost every night of my life talking to for the past 6 years. I knew that I had to start with who at the time I considered to be my best friend. Zach. That just feels weird saying that. His name is fucking Ziznich. I'm not going to call him Zach again. Disgusting. I waited for the right time. We were playing Grand Theft Auto 5, I think. The other guys had left to do things for a bit, and Zach was about to head off as well. I just called him Zach again. Anyway, Ziz was about to go as well. And at that moment, just as he was about to log off, I said I needed to talk to him about something. He asked what's up. He knew that I wouldn't just say that unless there was something pretty serious to talk about. I struggled for about 5 minutes to actually get the words to come out of my mouth. But I actually managed to say it in the end. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't concise, it was a blurted, jumbled mess of words that I hope kind of made sense to him. It was a really, really, really nerve-wracking moment for me. And his first reaction was to check if I was being serious, which I don't blame him for at all. Notoriously, we're a group of dark humour, jokes, and, all those good things that help us get through our daily lives. But I had to explain to him that no, I was actually serious. But he just simply said that, you're my friend. I don't care how you look, how you dress, or how you feel. That won't change. You'll always be Cherub to me, and that's what matters. And that was that. I broke down crying. But I was crying happy tears. I couldn't tell you the last time before that I'd cried happy tears. Ever. I don't think I had done it before. But with Ziz on my side after that, I waited for Blake and Isaac to come back on, and then we told them as well. Both of them were totally on board, echoed exactly what Ziz had to say. We waited a few days until I came out and told Geordie as well. But within 3 days, the whole gang knew. And that was just a massive weight off my chest. And it seems crazy, but 4 or 5 days after I had that conversation with them, I went to see them all for a long weekend, staying at Isaac's house, dressed how I wanted to, presenting how I wanted to, and I don't think I'd ever been happier before. That's when the real snag in my timeline sort of occurs, though. Work. I hate that word. Work is just crap. It doesn't matter what you do, unless you do something that you absolutely love that also provides a livelihood for you. Work sucks. I was getting more and more depressed at work. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. I was behind with everything I was doing, and I was so done with the world. For 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, I had to wear a suit and a tie, which killed me inside. It's so stupid to say that, but wearing a suit and a tie was like a form of torture for me. And that's where someone who's really special to me comes in. Someone who just refuses to give up on me. Someone who really pushed me to be myself and to be more. Someone who I could confide in. And the first person to keep my secret at what was rapidly becoming the last place that I was closeted. So it's early March, and Kaz pulled me aside one day. She'd noticed that I hadn't been right since coming back from the New Year break. I don't know what made me do it. I had a pretty convincing excuse lined up, and at this point, I was used to blatantly lying to people's faces. I worked in the motor trade, what do you want from me? But I couldn't lie to her then. Something about her, the way she genuinely cared and was concerned about me. So I just told her. I told her right then and there, in the middle of a workday, and I cried again. This is going to be a recurring theme. There's a lot of tears. We hugged it out, and then Kaz just became my work mum. She would look after me during the long, hard days of pretending to be a boy. And without her, I don't think I would have handled what came next very well at all. Firstly, Charles would never refer to himself as such. He's way too much of an Essex boy to do that. But, of course, myself, being a pompous, stuck-up git, would only refer to him as Charles, Chuckles, Charlesworth, Girthling, or similar words. And I was really scared about Charlie finding out. I don't know why, but he seemed like such a stereotypical lad, and that scared me. Whilst now I can truly say that he is in fact a wonderful man, I couldn't get over that fear. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I wouldn't have to. I'd set up an Instagram account to chronicle my transition. I'd left it open, and I'd invited Kaz to follow me, which she did. Little did I know that the monstrosity that is the social media algorithms soon figured out that I likely knew a bunch of people that Kaz knew too, and then started dishing out recommendations left, right, and Chelsea to follow this new girl, me, and her account. A few people saw it at work, and all were sworn to secrecy. Including one Catherine Brothers, who days later gifted me a little makeup bag full of goodies to me, and a note that simply read, "Be proud to be you." I still have that note. It lives on my wall over here. Little note that came with the bag that she got me. I still use that makeup bag, actually. So I set the account to private, and I made sure that no one could sort of find me through the algorithm. At least not easily. It was still possible to do so, but at least with my account private, I had plausible deniability over the whole thing. It goes forward maybe a couple of weeks, and I'm having another one of those down days at work. Charlie comes over and he asks if there's something that I wanted to tell him. So I look up from what I'm doing, and my heart's already in my throat at this point. I'm really scared of what he's going to say next. He just comes out and says it. He just says, I saw it too. I know about you, and I just want to say that it makes no difference to me. I think for Charlie, that was probably a difficult thing for him to say, because he has this sort of laddish exterior to him, but he's just a big softie on the inside. We all know that. We all love him. But that was that. I was gone again. I was crying in the middle of work, in the middle of our pristine Land Rover showroom. And I don't know what made me do it, but I just pulled Charlie into a hug. I'd known Charlie at that point for 3.5 years. We'd worked really hard together through some really tough and trying times, through like some absolutely ridiculous challenges, including one point where it was the two of us doing the entire front of house for the entire service department for a 3-month stint, which was absolutely mad. But just that simple act, those few words that he said to me then, broke me to the point that I had to go and cry my eyes out in the bathroom for 20 straight minutes. Soon after that, I came out to the manager that I had at the time, and now I had support all around me at work as well. It would still take me another 6 months to fully come out to everyone, though. It's April the 5th, 2019. I was scheduled to go to my GP and talk to them about how I felt. I got into my GP's office, and I'd actually made the appointment to talk about an ingrown toenail. I know, gross, but it's life. It happens. It sucks. So I had the discussion with them about that. She said that she'd actually need to refer me to one of the other GPs in the practice, because he'd be able to do the minor surgery that I needed on site, without any anesthetics or anything like that, which was fine. We reached the natural conclusion of the conversation that we've been having about that, and as you'd expect, she kind of looked at me waiting for me to leave, and I actually said to her very, very clearly, very concisely and confidently, I'd like to talk about something else. I'd like to talk about me and my gender identity. And I'd just taken my first step towards medical transition. Given how nervous I'd been coming out to other people, I'm honestly shocked at how well I held my nerve to say that to the GP. It was definitely really empowering for me to actually have said those things in such a confident manner. In early April, I started debating my name again, having originally wanted to change my name from my old name to what I then was using at the time, to Daisy. I just decided that that didn't really work for me. So I asked a few people what they thought. I had an idea in my head, and in the end I ended up going with it. I would be able to keep the same initials that I currently got. I would have similar shortenings available to me as to what I previously had as well, and I could just move Daisy to be my middle name. And thus my new name was created, and Jessica Daisy Denton was articulated into the airwaves for the very first time. I got a little trans pride flag pin that I started wearing to work. But I lamented how my mood still turned on a dime, and how I had to lie to people who actually knew what that pin meant. I felt, and I still do, feel really, really awful for lying to everyone, as I had to. But I wasn't ready to tell just anyone at that point. April on the whole was considerably slower. Compared to March, and February even, the whirlwind of things that went on then, April seemed like it was a holiday away from it all. But it wasn't without its moments. On April 26th, 2019, I went to see Avengers Endgame in cinemas. I was running a little bit late, and I had to walk from the car park to the cinema alone. And it was there for the first time while walking through the town centre as night began to fall that I was harassed. For, unfortunately, not the last time. It wasn't even that bad. All things considered, it could have been way, way worse. They just kind of leered at me as I was walking towards them until one of them got close enough and just went, "That's not a girl, that's a dude." And the others with him just started laughing at me. I hurried by as quickly as I could, not wanting to draw any extra attention to myself or give them a chance to escalate things further. I'd never been scared to be out in a town centre before in my life, or angry for being who I was. The stuff that you see in the news or in the media about trans people being attacked and killed is real. It actually happens. And now I've found myself as part of that minority, which was a really big reality check. Until that moment, I'd had nothing but good responses when I came out to people. But this time, in the real world, I learned that there are a lot of people who harbour a hatred for people like me. I started to realise by now that as nice as my NHS doctor was, getting referred to a gender identity clinic was going to take a long time. Too long. The wait time on average is about 4 years from referral to receipt of any kind of medical treatment. I could not wait that long. I'd waited way too long already. Every day my body was sinking more and more into its manly ways, and I had to stop it as soon as possible. That was when I booked my first appointment with Gender GP. Within a few short weeks, I was on the phone with a therapist, and we discussed in detail all of my feelings. It would still be a few more months before I got to my first big goal, but that was a huge leap forward for me. Also in May, I got some really nice, sparkly trans pride Converses. They're absolutely insane, and I love them. And I went out to see Muse in London. Live. Again. But this time I was myself for the first time, and it felt really good. Early June, I had my first professional makeover, and I was ecstatic. I saw my favourite band with my friends, and I got to look fabulous doing it. And on the very same weekend, I went swimming for the first time ever in something other than swimming trunks. It's just a swimming suit, but it had a little skirt on the bottom to hide the obvious. I was really scared, but I did it. My confidence was growing by the day. Also in June, I posted my first ever Transition Tuesday. For those of you who don't know, Transition Tuesday is like a thing within the trans community online where we post pictures of ourselves before we transitioned or early in our transition, and then we compare them to where we are now. Because a lot of the changes that we end up going through are really, really subtle. And it's difficult to see them on a day-to-day basis, but if you take a picture of a trans person who started transitioning 2 years ago and compare them to where they are after 2 years of transition, there'll be this ridiculous glowing difference about them. And to me, posting that at that point, the difference was already really obvious. I couldn't believe or see how far I'd come until I really saw those two pictures close together. But it also came to realise what was going to probably be the hardest part of my transition. And to this day, I still think that it is the hardest part for me to transition, and that's my voice. You've been listening to me talk now for something in the region of 20 minutes. Maybe even longer. I have no concept of time. But I love my voice. And it took me a long time to actually get comfortable with my own voice. Back when I was much younger, I started recording videos to upload to YouTube, and I hated my voice. I couldn't listen to them, I couldn't watch them, but I made myself do it. And over time, I started getting people commenting on my voice and complimenting me on it and saying how much they enjoyed listening to me speak and read things, and that it was just a good voice overall. And it's made it very hard for me to actually change anything. least of all because I've done some vocal training and I hated how I made myself sound. I was back to square one of being that young kid again, hating how they sounded and hearing themselves through the microphone. And I know that if I pushed myself, I could probably overcome that. But I'm really worried about losing what I've got with my vocal cords. Because I like how expressive they are. I like how varied they can be, how enigmatic I'm able to sound, and how charismatic it can be as well. The problem is that it's still clearly a guy's voice. I get misgendered on the phone more than I get misgendered in public by a massive margin because people can't see me. And I think my appearance now goes a long way to actually informing people's decision on what pronoun to use for me. It's a struggle. It's one that I hope I'll get better with in time, but it's still a struggle. The last week of June brought to me the first thing that I truly felt was going to be insurmountable, and that was when I came out to my dad. Of everyone that I'd told so far, this was easily the scariest. I was afraid that I would let him down. That I was his eldest child. At the time, he thought of me as his eldest son. I felt this huge weight on my shoulders that I had to try and follow in his footsteps to be the dad to the next generation of my family. My relationship with him has been strained in the past, certainly, but he's my dad, and I love him. I was also scared that he would blame himself for not being around during my formative years. None of that was anyone's fault in particular, just simply how it was. I wrote a letter to him explaining how I felt, as I was 100% certain that I would not be able to do it over the phone or face to face without breaking down. Again. I sent the letter, he read it, and then he called me immediately afterwards. And once again, all I had were words of kindness, of acceptance, and of love. That was it. I was now out everywhere in the world, apart from at work. Me and my dad went to a small pride festival in town, together with Beck and Robin a few days later, which was incredible. It just really was incredible. I was practically fully transitioned at this point, socially speaking. It was just work. That was the last place for me to conquer, was the workplace. At this point, I was living a double life. Well and truly a double life. 5 days a week at work, getting increasingly more and more depressed and fed up. I'd started wearing makeup and painting my nails while at work, and there was this sort of buzz in the air that something was up. I was at an all-time confidence high at this point. People would ask me, as a few people had done in the past when they'd either caught me wearing makeup or with my nails painted, why have you done that? Why did you choose to do that? That's, a girly thing. I lost track of the amount of times people called me gay for it, and I was like, why do you have to be gay to enjoy makeup? What does your sexuality have to do with enjoying a certain thing? Unless we're talking specifically sexual activities. Some sexual activities may be enjoyed more by one sexuality than another, sure. But everything else in life, it doesn't matter what your sexuality is, it doesn't matter what your gender is. Just, if you enjoy it, don't hide from it. And I used to come up with excuses for it. I'm tired, that's why it looks like I'm wearing mascara, or I've got bags under my eyes. Oh, my sister painted my nails as a joke, and I just didn't have time to take them off. But come July, I'd given up on that. I was done with it. I was just telling people blatantly and brazenly to their face, because I like it. That was it. It was simply that. I was wearing makeup because I liked it. I was painting my nails because I liked it. And I have to think that earned me, initially, probably a level of shock from my colleagues, but then a level of respect from them. I went to another concert. This time it was with Ziz and my manager at work, both of whom, of course, already knew that I was transgender and that I was transitioning. We saw Rammstein live, and honestly, it was phenomenal. If you've ever wondered what an inferno looks like up close, go to a Rammstein concert. It's the safest way to do it. And with my manager behind me and people at work starting to pick up on the little breadcrumb trail that I was leaving for them, I started to get HR involved from where I worked at the time, and we started figuring out what we needed to do when the day came that I would fully transition and would never go to work as a boy again. And to their credit, everyone at Lucas Land Rover were incredible. Honestly, I was expecting far worse from them. But I was, again, extremely pleasantly surprised to find that although there may not have been exact procedures in place for this because something like this hadn't happened, we had a diversity manager who I got to talk with on the phone or via email whenever I needed to, who helped me sort out all of the things that I would need to sort out, changing my email, changing my name in the systems, making sure that all of the past stuff that I'd done could still be linked back to me, but without outing me to every person under the sun. Which was really good. The other thing that happened at work that I won't forget is when Alice Bryant gave me some makeup that she didn't want. And I found myself for the first time wearing like a premium makeup product. I had some MAC highlighter from her, which I love. And I've actually now gifted it on to another friend in the hope that it makes them as happy as it made me. So there you go, Alice, that's what's happened to your MAC highlighter. It's still going. Then it was time for something that I'd actually really been looking forward to for the first time in a few years, and that was my birthday. And I know it sounds strange because, well, most younger people anyway tend to look forward to their birthdays every year because it's, if nothing else, it's an excuse to get drunk. It is an excuse to get presents from people, and it's an excuse to spend a lot of time with your friends and family and just generally have a good time doing things. But this birthday for me would be special. This was the first time that for my birthday, I would actually be getting presents from my family of stuff that I really, really wanted. That's not to say past birthdays had been bad, and I had got nothing that I wanted, and I hated my family for not buying me things that I wanted. It's just that I could actually ask for a nice dress. I could ask for makeup. I could ask for all of those things that I'd been secretly buying for myself for so long, which was really, really cool. We got all kinds of knickknacks, makeup, dresses, all of the stuff that I was after, and I had another appointment with Gender GP in July as well to sort out getting me onto HRT or hormone replacement therapy, and I was so close to that point that I could practically taste it, and the anticipation from my end of actually getting to that point was so high. I was so excited. It was much the same. There were some ups, there were some downs. Looking back through my Instagram posts in August, though, it certainly seemed to be more ups than downs, which was really nice. But then I started to get dragged and embroiled into this fiasco that is the NHS, the General Medical Commission, and trans healthcare. Honestly, it's a nightmare. The state of trans healthcare in the UK is not acceptable. 4 years of waiting from referral to treatment is not acceptable. People who are transgender have such an incongruence within themselves that it feels like everything they do, their very existence, is wrong. And that drives us to do usually one of two things. Repress it to the point where we're so depressed that we can't go on anymore, and we end up back at the suicidal thoughts that we spoke about earlier, or transition. And if you're not able to transition on the NHS because of how long it's going to take, your only other option is to do it yourself, which can be really dangerous unless you really know what you're doing, or to use private healthcare. Anyway, massive sidetrack rant there that I wasn't expecting, wasn't scripted, and holy shit, apparently I needed to get that out of my system. Shall we continue to September? Yes. Yes, we shall. September, spurred on by what had happened in August with the GMC, the NHS, and Gender GP, I decided to really start attacking getting HRT with a renewed vigour. My GP, although they wouldn't prescribe for me, had agreed to carry out blood tests on Gender GP's behalf, which saved me in the region of £250 per test. I know that there was difficulties with the GMC, Gender GP, and the NHS, but the simple fact that they were able to at least provide something is why we need to make sure our NHS is protected forever, because it's a wonderful system when it works. It can take a long time to get it to work, and some of the things that they do are a bit backwards, but oh my god, it's the best thing that this country has to offer its citizens by a long margin. Especially now that we're not in the EU anymore. We're getting political again. Back to the task at hand. Interestingly, when I had my blood tests done, one of the things that they check is your current hormone levels to see what the balance is. And before I'd started taking any HRT, I was actually only about 2 or 3% on my testosterone before it was low enough to be considered that I had some defect with me. Which I found really interesting, that my testosterone level was so low before I'd even taken any HRT. It's now like practically zero, which is a really nice feeling. So they made sure I didn't have any hormonal issues, that I didn't have any other issues with my body, and the tests came back that they were clean enough that they were happy for me to progress. I went to see Muse again, and this time, rather than getting a professional makeover, my makeup skills, or at least in my opinion, had advanced to the point where I was happy enough that I would do my own makeup for it. And it was also my first time wearing a corset, which was really interesting. And if you've never worn a corset before, you should try it. They're interesting. That's all I'll say on the matter. Interesting. Around the 15th of September, a couple of days after the Muse gig, I was sat in Costa Coffee in Westfield, Stratford. And I posted on Instagram, and it's still there if you want to go and see it, that I think I'm going full-time at work on Tuesday. The time had come for me to stop living the lie anywhere. It was finally right for me to come out at work. I'd originally wanted to wait until I was on HRT to do so. I don't know why I set that sort of arbitrary mark in my head, but I decided that that was what I wanted to do before I came out of work. I wanted to be on HRT. However, given the amount of time it had taken and how I was still living this double life, I just couldn't wait anymore. So I sent a letter to work on the 15th of September. By the time I got back into work, on the 17th of September, that letter had been distributed to all the members of staff in the building. They'd all read my words, understood what I had to say. And from Tuesday the 17th of September, that was it. I went what we call full-time, or rather, the day that I would never present male on again. That was it. I threw away all of my male clothing almost immediately because I was so sure that I wasn't going to go back. And not long after that, I'd been given a uniform allowance by Land Rover to go and buy more fitting work clothes for myself. I'd never been so excited to wear clothes at work before. And while all this was going on, this was sort of where a few more special people would just start appearing in my life as we ramp up to October 17th, 2019. I honestly can't remember where I found her, But somewhere in the depths of the Instagram algorithm, it decided to show me her profile. So I started following her, which sounds exceptionally creepy when you say it out loud. She had the fashion sense of a grunge goddess, and happened to be transgender as well, which just seemed like almost too good to be true. But there was even more than that. She happened to sort of live nearby, happened to be with Gender GP as well, and happened to be one of the nicest people that I've never met. I say never met because I've never met her in person. I've only ever spoken to her online, which kind of I feel bad for. But I can't state enough how much she did for me. How much advice she was able to give me, how much knowledge she had, being about, I think, 18 months or so ahead of me in the transition timeline. She'd done all of the things that I'd done. She'd done more than I'd done. She knew what would happen when I got HRT. She knew where I would get it from. She knew all of these things. Her massive, huge brain was just full of all of this incredible advice. And her wealth of knowledge and experiences was so invaluable to me. I've learnt so much from her, and to this day, she still gives me solid advice on everything. When I get worked up, I post stuff to my Instagram story because it's there for 24 hours and then it's gone and it lives in a highlight reel just for me. But whenever I post something that I'm angry about, scared about, sad about, she'll reach out and say what she can. It was so strange for me because I'd never had someone before who I could talk to about these feelings of being transgender, about dysphoria, who knew what they felt like. People could try and empathise with it, certainly, and I think my mum was very good at empathising with it because, to an extent, we are both trapped inside bodies that do not feel right for us. Her for other reasons, of course, and if you know my mum, you know that she is a trooper, an absolute crazy lady who will not give up on anything despite all the shit that life has thrown at her. Big inspiration and big shout out to my mum here. But actually to talk to Ellie and talk to someone else who shared in dysphoria, who knew what it feels like to have their body being close to what they're expecting but still alien to them. And it was honestly through her help that I was able to steel my resolve, push forwards to get HRT, and also discovered my laser hair removal clinic, which brings us on to yet another really special person to me. Part of being transgender and transitioning from male to female as I am is getting rid of body hair. We just people who are assigned male at birth have so much body hair, and it's so gross. I know a lot of you guys out there will be like, but I like my beard, I like my hairy chest. I hate it. I can't stand body hair. From the chin down, I make an effort to shave every inch of my body because I can't stand having body hair. But the problem was, I was shaving every single day, especially my face. I was ripping my skin to shreds, absolutely to shreds. I'd looked into a whole bunch of other solutions, like waxing, like tweezing, like laser removal, like electrolysis, but I used to be too afraid to go and do it. To go to an actual laser clinic, which I thought was the best option for me, given my skin tone and given the colour of the hair that I had at the time, laser was the best option. I couldn't find any clinics nearby that openly said that they welcomed transgender women to go and get hair removals, particularly on their face. I couldn't find any reviews from transgender people on local clinics or anything like that. And Ellie just comes along and says, well, hey, why don't you just go where I went? She tells me about what was at the time the Broxbourne Laser Clinic. And I was like, holy shit, this seems really good. Ellie says that Rachel, who runs the clinic, is amazing. I really want to go there. given all of the advice that Ellie had already given me, I decided that I just had to go. Which meant a 62-mile drive there, and then a 62-mile drive back just for a consultation and a test patch. And that's where I met Rachel for the first time. And I went from being really stressed and really uneasy about everything to just being super relaxed. The way that Rachel spoke, all the information that she had to give, and just how warm and genuine she is as a person put me at ease immediately. 2 weeks after the test patch, I went back for my first full face session, which meant no shaving for 24 hours prior, which meant no makeup on the area that's going to be treated. And I went out in public presenting feminine for the first time with a 5 o'clock shadow and no makeup to cover it up. It was horrible. It was really, really scary. I looked terrible. But when I arrived, again, Rachel was just there. Didn't care how I looked, treated me just the same, and was still just a wonderful person. We talked about all kinds of rubbish as she methodically tortured me with a high-powered laser by shooting it into my face repeatedly. But I was just blown away with how nice she is. I've been back to her for around, I don't know, maybe half a dozen, 10 sessions maximum so far. But every time I see her, it's just the same happy person. And it turns out she's a massive nerd, same as me, which always helps. She plays D&D. She's interested in actually how the laser works rather than just zapping it, which is really, really cool. And I will still go out of my way to make a 124-mile round trip just to go and see her. And if anyone needs any laser hair removal, you gotta go straight to her, because she's incredible. She's absolutely incredible. This brings us to October of 2019. Specifically, 3 days, October 15th, 16th, and 17th. October of 2019 was hard for a lot of reasons. We'd had to move out of the house that we'd lived in for the past 14 years, which was really, really scary and really poignant as well. We'd started the move in early October, and by the 15th, we were starting to move the last bits in. It was the single biggest change in my life, aside from transitioning, for that 14-year period. And it was tough, but as a family, we made it through. So, the whole time this move was going on, I was still talking to Gender GP. They had my blood test results, which concluded that, as I said earlier, my levels were within a good enough range to go ahead with HRT. The day after we moved in, so October the 16th, I had a message from Clear Chemist saying that they'd received my prescription from Gender GP and that my order was being processed. I read that email so many times because it seemed so unreal. The next day, October 17th, a DPD delivery van arrives at my door. I take my package from the driver. I open it, and inside is a 3-month supply of hormone replacement therapy with my name on it. And the euphoria at that point was overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming. But I waited until the evening of that day to take the first pill. I took a short video of it, which was on my Instagram. So, as of 2048, on October 17th, 2019, I've been taking hormone replacement therapy daily. The changes were really slow, but sure, and I'm here now 1 full year on. There are still more changes happening, more things to do, and more for me to achieve, but one thing that I've learned over this year is that I don't have to go through these changes alone. And this year of 2020 has thrown so much shit at us all, but we can overcome it with friendship, loyalty, and sharing our strength. And that's why I wanted to mention one more person. I'd met Charlotte once before I came out. She was my close friend, Ashley's better half. I have to say that she was that, because she's become so much more than that to me now. She's given me something that I thought I would never have. A girlfriend. And not in that respect. Perhaps a better word for it is a gal pal, but that sounds so crap and I hate it. But I don't know how else to describe it to you to make sure that you understand what I'm saying. And I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but something just seems to have clicked between us. And I finally got to experience what it was like to have a girls' night in. What it was like to just have that time chatting, laughing, crying, while we messed around, did our nails and our makeup. The experiences, to me, that I've had with her are invaluable. And despite everything that I'd achieved, I hadn't realised how much I needed someone like her in my life. She reassures me, she lifts my spirits, and pushes me to overcome my own self-imposed limits. Well, that's kind of the end of the timeline. There's been a whole year since then, but it's been much of the same. We've lived through 2020 together. We've lived through everything that's going on. We're still living with what's going on. In fact, I'm recording this on the day that it's been announced that once again we're no longer allowed to go and mingle with other households in Essex. And I went into detail about some of the people who had helped me, but that list isn't even close to everyone I can think of that's had a positive impact on my life in the past 18 months. So I say thanks to as many of you as I can in this little short roundup. In the past 18 months or so, so many people have been so supportive, and I couldn't ask for more. So I wanted to add some extras just onto the end, just quickly, because otherwise we're going to be sat here literally for hours talking about how nice you all are and how much you mean to me, and I don't have the capacity to talk for that long. I can talk for a while, but I can't talk sincerely for that long. So a thank you to Paul, because you never got my name or pronouns wrong. A thank you to Dale for just being there for me to talk to you about literally anything and everything, serious to stupid to nerd shit. To Shane for just asking the right questions, and honestly that's stuck with me, so thank you. Everyone who worked with me at Land Rover when I came out, thank you for the smoothest coming out I could have ever imagined. Thank you to Ashley and to Josh, because you showed me that no matter what I thought, no matter how I look or how I choose to be, you guys have both got my back. For everyone else on Discord, for Liam, for Richard, for Sam, for Brandon, for Jeff, for John, for the other Sam, all of you, thank you for supporting me and helping me. To all of the gender non-conforming people who post on Instagram and Reddit, just thank you for sharing your stories with us. Thank you for inspiring the rest of us to be who we are. Thank you for inspiring me to bother taking time out of my life to make this video. No matter how far I think it'll reach, if it has a positive impact on just one person's life, then I'll be happy with that. And then just to anyone else who knows me in real life, who has helped me by using the right pronouns, using the right name, correcting friends, correcting their families when they use the wrong names or wrong pronouns, thank you for doing that for me. And if I haven't mentioned you by name, just please don't be offended by that. I couldn't conceivably list every single person who's been a good influence on me in the past 20 months, because there's so many of you. And although it's my 1 year anniversary, my transiversary, if you will, I can't see that I would have done it without each and every one of you. So thank you.